Bloating after meals, you know that moment when you sit down after dinner and suddenly look 5 months pregnant. You assume you just overate. You didn't necessarily. That tightness is often your gut flagging a mismatch, not a portion problem. Researchers call it asterisk functional bloating, and it usually traces back to how well certain carbohydrates, called FODMAPs, ferment in your intestines. When gut bacteria hit a food they can't fully break down, they produce gas as a byproduct, the same way yeast makes bread rise. Except this rising happens inside you. Even elite athletes get this after their pre-race pasta plate, so it's not a discipline issue, it's chemistry. Think of it less as your body failing and more as a delivery confirmation. Message received, still processing. Your gut isn't broken. It's just buffering, brain fog struggling to finish a sentence you started 3 seconds ago. That's not you getting lazier. That's a dropped call between your gut and your brain. Scientists call the two-way wiring between them the asterisk gut-brain-axis, and it runs through the vagus nerve, a direct cable connecting your intestines to your skull. When inflammation or an imbalanced microbiome disrupts that line, the signal to your brain gets static and focus slips. It's the same reason people describe thinking clearly again after fixing digestive issues. Your gut isn't just talking to your brain. In a real sense, it's part of the conversation. Not exactly bad news your morning coffee, though. Sudden breakouts, that constellation of jawline pimples showing up out of nowhere. Text incoming. This is the asterisk gut-skin axis at work. Your skin is basically the most public-facing screen your gut has. When digestion gets inflamed, it can trigger inflammatory chemicals that show up as breakouts days later. Even Hippocrates was onto this over 2,000 years ago when he said, "All disease begins in the gut." Turns out dermatologists are only now catching up. Your face isn't betraying you. It's just the notification banner. Sugar cravings. Ever notice how a craving for something sweet hits right after a stressful hour, almost on command? That's not weak willpower. That might be your gut microbes literally voting. Certain bacteria thrive on sugar, and some research suggests they can influence cravings through the same vagus nerve pathway that handles mood and appetite signals, essentially sending an order more request upstream to your brain. It's a feedback loop, not a character flaw. Reroute the traffic with fiber-rich food for a few days, and the cravings often quiet down. Proof the notification was coming from your gut's inbox, not your discipline. Silent anxiety, you know, that background hum of unease that shows up for no obvious reason? Your gut may be one of the senders. Roughly 90 to 95% of your body's serotonin, the neurotransmitter most linked to mood, is produced in the gut, not the brain. According to research summarized by Caltech microbiologist Elaine Hsiao and colleagues, that doesn't mean your gut causes every anxious moment, and mental health is genuinely complex. But it does mean a disrupted microbiome can turn up the static on your emotional signal. This is why so many people report calmer moods after fixing chronic digestive issues. It isn't placebo, it's plumbing. Even NASA studies astronaut microbiomes, partly because gut shifts in space correlate with mood shifts. Your gut's emotional influence is taken seriously well outside your kitchen. So the next time anxious energy hits with no clear cause, it's worth asking what your gut has been eating lately, not just what's on your mind. It's not all in your head. It's partly in your gut, too. Bad breath, brushed your teeth, used the mouthwash, still not convinced your breath is winning any arguments. Sometimes the source isn't your mouth at all. It's a text from lower down. When bacteria overgrow in the small intestine, a condition called asterisk SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, the byproducts can travel up and show up as persistent bad breath no amount of minty gum fixes. Dentists increasingly refer patients with unexplained halitosis to gastroenterologists for exactly this reason. Not glamorous, but at least now you know where to actually send the complaint. The 3 a.m. wake up, you fall asleep fine. Then, like clockwork, you're staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. for no reason at all. That's not insomnia being cruel to you specifically. It may be a blood sugar dip triggering a stress hormone spike, cortisol, that your gut helps regulate through its own daily rhythm. Your gut actually runs on something close to its own internal clock, sometimes called the gut clock, which syncs with, but isn't identical to, your sleep-wake cycle. When that rhythm gets thrown off by late-night eating or inconsistent meal timing, the wake-up call practically schedules itself. Shift workers and frequent flyers know this one intimately. Jet lag isn't just about your eyes adjusting to light, it's your gut clock catching up too. Consider that 3 a.m. wake-up less your body malfunctioning and more wrong time zone for your intestines. Annoying, but at least it's fixable, unlike your group chat that's also awake at 3 a.m. for some reason. Afternoon crash, that wall you hit around 2 p.m. where your eyelids suddenly weigh 40 pounds. Not just lunch was heavy. Blood sugar spikes and crashes tied to how your gut processes refined carbs can trigger genuine fatigue, distinct from just being tired. It's your body diverting energy to digestion and smoothing out a glucose roller coaster at the same time. Swap the crash-inducing meal for one with more protein and fiber, and the signal often clears up fast, catching every cold feel like you're perpetually one handshake away from getting sick. Around 70% of your immune system lives in tissue lining your gut, according to widely cited immunology research, meaning your intestines aren't just a food processor, they're mission control for defense. A disrupted microbiome can mean weaker border security, so to speak, letting more invaders through. This is part of why researchers like Rob Knight, a pioneer of the American Gut Project, have pushed to study microbiome diversity as an immune metric, not just a digestion one. Getting sick often isn't necessarily bad luck. It might just be your gut's security system running short-staffed, achy joints, random knee or wrist ache that shows up with no obvious injury. Inflammation doesn't always stay where it starts. When gut lining gets irritated, sometimes described as increased intestinal permeability, inflammatory markers can circulate through the bloodstream and settle in joints, echoing the aches associated with autoimmune conditions like rheumatoid arthritis. Doctors don't claim gut health explains all joint pain, but the correlation is well documented enough that some rheumatologists now ask about digestion during evaluations. Your knees might be forwarding a complaint that actually started in your stomach. Stubborn weight doing everything right, tracking, exercising, and the scale just won't budge. That plateau might be about diversity, not discipline. Studies comparing lean and overweight individuals, including twin studies from Washington University's Jeffrey Gordon lab, found meaningful differences in gut bacterial diversity between the two groups, suggesting your microbiome can influence how efficiently you extract and store energy from food. That doesn't mean bacteria alone decide your weight. Genetics, sleep, and activities still matter enormously, but it's one more variable your gut has been quietly voting on. Feeding that diversity with varied, fiber-rich foods is like finally giving the whole committee a say instead of just the loudest members. Acid reflux everyone assumes heartburn means too much stomach acid, and sometimes it does. But counterintuitively, some cases trace back to too little acid, which slows digestion and lets pressure build, pushing contents back up where they don't belong. It's less overflowing inbox and more message stuck because the system's too slow to clear it. This is why some people find relief with approaches that support digestion rather than just suppressing acid outright. Though this varies person to person and is worth discussing with a doctor rather than self-diagnosing. Either way, that burning sensation is a very literal alert. New food sensitivity suddenly reacting to a food you've eaten your whole life with zero issues? That's one of the gut's more dramatic messages. When intestinal lining gets irritated over time, it can become more permeable, sometimes letting undigested particles trigger immune responses to foods that were previously fine. A pattern researchers are still actively studying under the broader leaky gut umbrella, which remains a genuinely evolving area of science. It's not that your body turned on you overnight. It's more like your gut spam filter got recalibrated, and now it's flagging things it used to let straight through. Brittle nails that split, peel, or just won't grow past a certain point. Sometimes that's a nutrient absorption issue, not a nail care issue. A gut that isn't absorbing vitamins and minerals efficiently, often due to inflammation or imbalance, can show up in the parts of your body that grow fastest and need the steadiest nutrient supply, like nails and hair. Dermatologists sometimes catch early gut issues this way, before a patient even mentions digestion. Your nails are basically the low battery icon for your gut's nutrient delivery. Restless sleep, sleeping a full 8 hours but waking up like you ran a marathon in your dreams? Sleep quality, not just quantity, ties back to your gut more than most people realize. Your microbiome helps produce precursors to melatonin, the hormone that regulates sleep, and an imbalanced gut can mean that production runs inconsistent, leaving you technically asleep, but not getting the restorative stages that matter. Even Thomas Edison, notorious for barely sleeping, reportedly had famously erratic digestion. Take that historical anecdote for what it's worth. Restless nights aren't always a mattress problem. Sometimes it's a manufacturing delay upstream, mood swings fine 1 hour, irritable the next, with nothing that actually changed. Your gut bacteria produce and respond to neurotransmitters like GABA and dopamine, essentially participating directly in your emotional chemistry rather than just supporting it from a distance. A shift in your microbiome, from stress, poor sleep, or diet, can shift that chemical output in ways that feel like mood swings but are really more like signal fluctuations. It's less you're being dramatic and more the message kept getting garbled in transit. Irregular bathroom trips, bathroom schedule less predictable than your favorite show's release dates. Your gut runs on rhythm, and transit time, how long food takes to move through your system, is one of the clearest, most literal signals it sends. Too fast or too slow can both point to imbalance, stress, or diet shifts rather than just bad luck that week. Doctors actually use transit time as a genuine diagnostic clue, not a taboo topic to avoid. Consider it the most unfiltered, unskippable text your gut ever sends, and probably the one people ignore the most. Constant snack attacks reaching for something crunchy or salty 10 minutes after a full meal? That's not always hunger. Sometimes it's your gut bacteria requesting specific fuel, since different bacterial strains prefer different food types and can influence cravings to keep their preferred food supply coming. It sounds strange, but it's one of the more actively researched areas in the gut behavior connection right now. Feed a wider variety of whole foods for a couple weeks, and a lot of people notice the constant snacking notifications finally slow down. Turns out, even your pantry raids have a sender